business, success, and innovation. If you talk about these topics long enough, Steve Jobs' name is bound to come up at some point. To many, he was a hero. To some, he was a villain. But to everyone, he's a guy who is regularly quoted, often with things he never said. But right now, we're gonna delve into 5 timeless lessons from business magnate Steve Jobs. Number 1, skate to where the puck is going to be.
There's an old Wayne Gretzky quote that I love. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been.
Steve goes on to say that's exactly what he tried to do with Apple right from the very beginning. In other words, he anticipated future trends rather than reacting to them. And that's largely what made Jobs so successful and allowed Apple to innovate and dominate so many markets. It also reminds me of the Henry Ford quote. If I'd asked my customers what they wanted, they'd have said a faster horse. Jobs wasn't looking for those little incremental improvements, and he wasn't just trying to beat the competition at their game, he was trying to redefine the game. The lesson here is how can we get on the attack? Rather than just reacting to changes, how can we create the changes? How can we constantly push things forward? Because after all, as Steve himself said, those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world usually do. Number 2, build a team of only A players.
I've built a lot of my success off finding these truly gifted people and not settling for B and C players, but really going for the A players. And I found something. I found that when you get enough A players together, when you go through the incredible work to find 5 of these A players, they really like working with each other because they've never had a chance to do that before. And they don't want to work with B and C players, and so it becomes self-policing, and they only want to hire more A players.
Jobs goes on to explain how the Mac team, for example, was all A players, and he says that you know they're A players because they'll suggest modifications and improvements rather than just going along with something. What's most interesting here is that of course Jobs wasn't a coder or an engineer, he didn't build the incredible products himself, he built a team of people who could bring his vision to life. And so I think this is a really important reminder of the power of surrounding yourself with the right people and the value in taking the time to seek out other A players and connect with them and work with them wherever you can. Number 3, connecting the dots.
You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
In this speech, Jobs talked a lot about how he once took a calligraphy class in college, which seemingly had no practical benefit to the path he was on. And yet, attending that class is the sole reason Apple introduced beautiful typography and different fonts to their computers, which all computers then adopted. His point is that, at the time, it's often impossible to see how things in our life are all going to come together. It's only when we look back can we connect those dots, and trusting in that simple premise is what allows you to follow your gut. Number 4, reality distortion field. I'll hand over to Andy Hertzfeld for this, who worked on the Macintosh.
Schedule, I said, this schedule is ridiculous, and Bud goes, I know. He said, well, how can you know and have the schedule not have anything to do with reality? And he had to explain to me, well, it's Steve. And he told me that Steve had a reality distortion field. And Steve could convince anybody of anything, so Steve did not accept a reasonable schedule. So the schedule had to be in this distorted reality.
Jobs is credited with a lot of things, but one of my favorites is his ability to distort reality. In the scenario in this video, the team all said it'd take a minimum of 2 years to get it done, but Jobs convinced them they could do it in 8 months. It ended up taking 12, but that was still half the time the team had predicted. Jobs always expected greatness from everyone, and they normally rose to those expectations. Essentially, the reality distortion field was Steve Jobs' ability to convince himself and others around him to believe almost anything with a mix of charm, charisma, bravado, hyperbole, marketing, and persistence. But of course, we all have the power to distort reality this way and give ourselves challenges to rise to. We can all choose to view things through a more optimistic and positive lens than they really are, because quite often, if that's the way you choose to see things, it becomes your reality. Number 5, the greatest motivator is death.
If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right. It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something.
Jobs went on to say that remembering he'll be dead soon is the most important tool he had to help make the big choices in life, and to ensure that he made his time count and focused on the most important things. As morbid as it sounds, the reminder of our own mortality does make you want to take action and live life to the fullest. Jobs talked a lot about how you need to love what you do, as we spend so much of our life working, so don't settle until you find something that fulfills you. Now, in truth, we could go on all day here with lessons, such as the way he built his personal brand and made every speech such a big, exciting event. But rather than bombarding you with information, I think really stopping to think about those 5 lessons laid out and how they can impact your own life would be a much better strategy. But for more lessons from other magnates in the future, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.